Hello and thank you for participating in this focus group discussion. Today we'll be addressing a real-life case involving financial statement manipulation and its broader implications. We have replaced the key players in the case with Party A, Party B, and others to encourage an objective and impartial discussion. In the case under consideration, Party A was an accounting firm responsible for auditing the financial statements of Party B, a life insurance company. In 2020, the audit done by OJK revealed evidence of financial statement manipulation of Party B that has been audited by Party A. Specifically, the non-recording of insurance policies was a substantial amount. This manipulation was an attempt to cover up significant liabilities stemming from accumulated losses due to the sale of certain insurance products. The consequences of this case were severe. Party B's business license was revoked, leading to the liquidations of its assets to repay policyholders, and potentially some policyholders may not be fully compensated. Moreover, the case also impacted public accountants involved, resulting in the revocation of the registration certificates and the prohibition of providing financial services. Now, let's delve into the various aspects of this case. I'll pose some questions for your consideration. The first one is, what are your views regarding this case? The second is, what are the effects of this case on the accounting profession as a whole? Is it beneficial or not? The third is, what are the effects of this case on the life insurance industry? And four, would you hold Party A, which is the accounting firm, accountable for this action? The fifth one would be, would you hold Party B, the insurance company, accountable for this action? The sixth are the penalties for Party B sufficient, or should they be more severe to deter such activities? And the seventh are the penalties for Party A sufficient, or should they be more severe to deter such activities? The eighth and final one, which is, what are some ways to prevent similar scandals from happening in the future? Please share your thoughts and opinions on these questions. There are no wrong or right answers in these discussions, and we aim to generate a productive and insightful discussion on this complex issue. So let's start with the first question. From the pro side, can you provide us with your insight on the question?
Yeah, certainly, moderator. As the pro side, I believe that the actions of the key players in the Party B case were justified, and because they were trying to protect the jobs and the firm's stakeholders. The firm was in a difficult financial situation and facing increasing competition. Its profits were declining and it was at risk of bankruptcy. So the firm's management believed that if they did not act, thousands of jobs would be lost. And the firm's management also believed that they were acting in the best interest of the firm's stakeholders. By keeping the firm afloat, they were protecting the jobs of employees and the investment of the shareholders. Of course, there are ethical concerns associated with manipulating financial statements and selling products with guaranteed returns. However, I believe that the firm's management made a difficult decision to protect the jobs of employees and the investment of the shareholders. And in addition to that, I believe that the auditors were at least partially responsible for the firm's financial problems, as they failed to detect the financial irregularities, which allowed the firm's management to continue to operate the firm and collect profits, even though they knew that the firm was insolvent. So overall, I believe that the case of the key players in the Party B case were justified, as they made a difficult decision in order to protect the jobs of the employees and the investment of the shareholders.
Okay, thank you for sharing your insights from the pro side. What about you from the con side?
Okay, thank you, moderator. So, as you guys heard from the case overview, this case shown that Party B and A violates the Code of Ethics for Professional Accountants of Integrity. So, Party B violates the integrity in the Accounting Code of Conduct since they practice a dishonest action of manipulation of financial statements. The second one is professional competence and due care. The public accounting firm, or Party A in this case, is not competent since they made a mistake when they audit Party B's financial statements. And the third one is professional behavior. So Party B violates the professional behavior code of conduct due to the manipulation of their finance, since they are conducting an unprofessional behavior. So this Party B case is a serious financial scandal that has had significant impact on policyholders. It is important to hold those responsible for this scandal accountable and to ensure that policyholders are compensated for their losses. And I am concerned that the Party B case may have eroded public trust in the insurance industry. And it is also important for the OJK and other regulators to take steps to restore public confidence in the industry. This includes strengthening financial regulations and also consumer protection measures. And Party B case highlight the need for greater transparency and accountability in the insurance industry. and policyholders should have access to more information about the financial health of their insurers and the risks associated with their policies.
Okay, thank you from the conside. Now, from both of your opinions, it seems that the case is a complex one, and it is essential to consider both sides of the arguments to foster a comprehensive discussion. The pro sides believe that the actions of the key players in Party B were justified because they were driven by the need to protect jobs and the firm stakeholders, while the con sides believe that the action of Party B violates some principles of ethics, or Party A and Party B should be held responsible. Okay, now that we have discussed these differing viewpoints of the Party B case, let's explore the effect of this case on the accounting profession as a whole. The pro side, can you please share our insights on how this might have benefited the accounting profession?
Certainly, moderator. So the Party B case has the potential to bring about positive changes within the accounting profession. One significant impact is the increased scrutiny and accountability, as auditors may become more diligent, leading to more accurate financial reporting. This scrutiny can prevent financial irregularities. And additionally, regulatory bodies might tighten their oversight, enforcing stronger governance and more effective regulation. This in turn can help prevent unethical practices and financial manipulations. And the case also highlights the importance of ethical conduct, which may lead to an enhanced ethical training within the profession. Ethical emphasis can promote integrity and responsible reporting. Stakeholder protection is reinforced, focusing accountants on the broader impact of their work. So improved transparency in financial reporting and decision-making processes can help rebuild trust with investors and the public. Enhanced risk assessment by auditors can lead to earlier detection of financial irregularities, protecting stakeholder interests. Lastly, companies might establish stronger corporate governance practices, creating a more stable and ethical corporate government.
Okay, thank you for highlighting those potential improvement in the accounting profession. Now, from the conside, what are your view on the effect of this case on the accounting profession?
While there are potential benefits, we cannot ignore the detrimental aspects of the Party B case on the accounting profession. It has significantly damaged the reputation of the profession and eroded public trust, making it more challenging for accounting firms and professionals. Specifically, there are some of the negative consequences, such as damage to the reputation, where this case has tarnished the image of the accounting profession, making it harder for firms to attract clients and for accountants to find jobs. There's also loss of public trust. So public trust in accounting has dwindled, impeding the effectiveness and credibility of accounting firms and professionals. There's also an increased cost, where this case has led to increased costs for accounting firms due to heightened scrutiny and regulation. This includes spending more on compliance and risk management. And there's also a reduced demand, where the damaged reputation has reduced the demand for accounting services, as businesses may be less likely to trust accountants and prefer in-house accounting. And the last one is there's recruitment and retention challenges, where it's becoming more difficult for accounting firms to recruit and retain qualified accountants due to increased scrutiny, regulation, and also associated costs.
Okay, thank you for both of your insights and for the effects of this case to the accounting professions. I want to add to this discussion that a fraud case like we are discussing right now brings both positive and negative impact to the accounting profession. The positive impact being that the auditor is motivated to improve their work, while employees may need additional ethical training. While the negative impact is that consumer trust the auditor is eroded, and the auditor may impose a higher fee to divert the risk of the work, which in effect causes the reduction of demand for audit firms and challenges in recruiting and retaining qualified accountants in the firm. Now, let's shift our focus to the effects of the life insurance industry. What do you think from the pro side?
Yes, the Party B case can lead to various positive changes within the life insurance industry, such as improved regulatory compliance. So regulatory bodies may establish stricter rules and guidelines promoting greater transparency and accountability to prevent unethical practices. Second, they can also have an enhanced risk management, such as insurance companies may proactively assess and manage financial risk, ensuring the industry's stability and reducing the need for financial manipulation. And third, maybe strengthen the consumer protection. To regain trust, insurers might prioritize consumer protection, ensuring policyholders receive the benefits they've paid for. And fourth is maybe improve ethical culture. The case can foster a stronger ethical culture within the industry, emphasizing ethical behavior in financial reporting and stakeholder relationships. Fifth is rebuilding of trust. Companies may invest in efforts to regain the trust of policyholders and the investors. Six is the innovations in products and services. So to remain competitive, insurers may focus on innovative customer-centric offerings, ensuring the industry's financial health. And lastly is enhanced solvency measures. By implementing stronger solvency measures and controls can prevent insolvency situations leading to a more stable industry.
Okay, thank you from the process. I see right now that there are also potential improvement in the life insurance industry that benefited from the case, much like the accounting profession. Now, from the conside, what do you think? What is your perspective on the impact of the case on the life insurance industry?
So this Party B case has indeed had a significant impact on the life insurance industry in Indonesia. The first one is there's an eroded public trust, since this case has eroded public trust in the industry, and it resulted in fewer new policy sales and an increase in policy cancellation. And life insurance companies have had to pay claims to policyholders who couldn't access their benefit from Party B, affecting their financial performance, so they have a negative impact on their financial performance. And this case also reduced the investment appetite of life insurers, making it more challenging for them to find suitable investment opportunities. And there's also increased competition from other financial institutions, since banks and mutual funds have become more attractive investment options, and it also increased competition in the financial sector. Additionally, there's also an increased cost for policyholders, since life insurance companies have raised premiums to pass on the costs associated with the case to policyholders. And there's also a reduced product offerings, where some insurers have limited their product offerings, especially more vulnerable products like saving plans. And there's also a reduced job opportunities, since this decline in the demand for life insurance product has led to reduced job opportunities for insurance agents and also professionals.
Okay, thank you both for sharing your thoughts on the effects of the case on the life insurance industry. It is clear that this case had multifaceted consequences. To sum up your discussion on the impact of the life insurance industry, there has some potential improvement on the industry regulation to be stricter with stronger risk management and customer protection. But the industry itself received some negative impact from the case, which is the public trust for them has eroded, and there is an increased cost for policyholders with reduced product offerings. This made the insurance industry in a bad situation and could lose to more attractive investment options in the financial sector. Okay, now let's move on to our next discussion. Would you hold Party A accountable for its action? Now, Bro, that you have expressed your reasons for not holding Party A accountable, and can you believe Party A should be held accountable? Let's explore this further. Now, Pro, can you elaborate first on why do you not holding Party A accountable?
Certainly, moderator, I have mixed feelings about the holding Party A accountable for its action in the Party B case. On one hand, I believe that Party A made mistakes and some level of accountability should be established. However, we must also consider the challenging environment in which they were operating. Holding Party A accountable could set a precedent that makes it more difficult for auditors to detect financial irregularities in the future, as auditors are already under significant pressure to complete audits efficiently. If they fear being held accountable for every mistake, they may become hesitant to challenge management or conduct thorough investigations. And additionally, this accountability could lead to higher audit fees as auditors seek to cover potential liability, making audits more expensive and for businesses and potentially discouraging them from seeking audits. And lastly, it could harm the reputation of the accounting profession if auditors are seen as primarily interested in self-preservation rather than protecting the public trust, as businesses might struggle to find competent and trustworthy auditors.
Okay, thank you, Bro. Now, from the concept, what are your views on the accountability of Party A?
I firmly believe that Party A, the accounting firm, should be held accountable for its actions in this Party B case. So Party A, as the auditors in Party B firm, had a clear responsibility to ensure the proper management and financial health of the company. However, they failed in this duty, leading to the collapse of Party B and substantial losses for policyholders. And here's how I think Party A should be held accountable. The first one is they should be given a financial penalty. So the Financial Service Authority should impose a substantial financial penalty on Party A, the accounting firm, to both penalize them for their wrongdoings and serve as a deterrent for other companies engaged in similar behavior. The second one is they should be charged for criminal liability if there is a sufficient evidence Party A's executive should face criminal charges, including fraud and other criminal offenses. If found guilty, they should be subject to prison terms. The third one is a compensation to policyholders. Party A should use its resources to compensate policyholders for their losses incurred as a result of Party B's collapse. It's a matter of resolution and accountability. And these actions are essential to maintain trust in the financial industry and ensure that controlling shareholders and auditors fulfill their responsibilities to protect the interests of stakeholders and the public.
Thank you, Kon, for your perspective on this matter. So, to summarize, Party A should be held accountable for their mistakes since they failed to detect the financial statement manipulation in auditing Party B. But it could have consequences to the accounting profession, such as higher audit fees, and maybe auditor hesitant to conduct thorough investigation in fear of being held accountable for every mistake. Okay, now let's move on to our next discussion. Since we have discussed the accountability of Party A, let's discuss the accountability of Party B. Would you hold Party B accountable for its actions? We'll start from you, the process.
Yes, I don't believe that Party B should be held accountable for its actions in the Party B case, and I have some reasons as to why. First is maybe auditor oversight, as Party B might argue that the auditors who are expected to detect irregularities failed in their oversight. This could lead to a claim that the company should not be held solely accountable when its auditors also played a significant role. And second is maybe the lack of intentional deception, as Party B may contend that the financial irregularities were not part of the deliberate plan to deceive investors or policyholders, but rather a result of mismanagement or lack of understanding of the consequences. Maybe third is the attempted recovery, as the company could present evidence that it took steps to rectify its financial situation and try to recover from the difficulties, as this might be seen as a mitigating factor in terms of accountability. And fourth is maybe the safeguarding policyholders, as Party B might argue that they took actions with the intention of safeguarding policyholders and preserving the financial well-being of the company, even if the methods were flawed or unethical. And fifth is the economic and social consequences. Holding Party B fully accountable might result in significant economic and social consequences, including job losses and potential harm to policyholders. Authorities could consider this when deciding on the level of the accountability. And lastly is the lack of full understanding, and the company may assert that they did not have full understanding the implication of its actions, particularly if they were not well versed in complex financial matters.
Okay, thank you from the process. What is your opinion on the accountability of Party B, Konsai?
I firmly believe that Party B should be held accountable for its action in this case. And here's my perspective on the matter. So Party B should be liquidated under the supervision of the Financial Services Authority. This would enable policyholders to recover their savings and investments, which is essential for justice and restoration. And if there's a sufficient evidence, Party B's executive should face criminal charges, including fraud and other criminal offenses. This is to ensure accountability for their actions. And Party B shareholders should also be held accountable for their losses. Requiring them to contribute to a compensation fund for policyholders is a way to ensure that those who benefited from the company's actions share in the responsibility for the consequences. And accountability is crucial to maintain trust and integrity in the financial industry and to protect the interests of policyholders and the public.
Okay, thank you both for presenting your viewpoints on this matter. So there are varying opinions on whether Party B should be held accountable for its action in the case. Even though Party B committed fraud, the accountability of them still could be debated. They are not such as Party B are not deliberately being deceptive, and they are attempting recovery, and it is an auditor oversight to not found the manipulation of financial statement. But still, Party B is committing fraud and can be held accountable by liquidation, criminal charges for the executive, and requiring them to compensate for the policyholders' loss. Now that we have discussed whether they should be held accountable or not, let's discuss the penalty that they were given. Is the penalty given to Party A sufficient, or should it be more severe? What do you think from the process?
From my side, I think the penalty given to Party A is already sufficient. The penalty imposed by the Financial Services Authority appears to be substantial, including the revocation of the registration certificate and restriction on taking new assignments, as this sends a strong message about the seriousness of the case.
Okay, what makes you think this penalty is adequate?
The penalties imposed have significant consequences for Party A, like losing their registration certificate is a severe blow to their reputation and future business prospects. Additionally, not being able to accept new assignments is a practical limitation on their operations. These measures aim to hold them accountable for their oversight and ensure that they take steps to rectify the situation.
Okay, so in your view, the penalty is not only punitive but also serve as a deterrent for other auditing firms.
Yes, moderator, I think so. The penalty not only addresses the wrongdoing but also discourages other auditing firms from failing in their oversight responsibilities. It sends a clear message that the auditors have a crucial role in maintaining financial integrity and that negligence in this regard will be met with severe consequences.
Okay, thank you, Pro, for sharing. What do you think from the conside?
I think the punishment should be more severe. The appropriate penalty for Party A, the auditing firm, in this case should be determined through a fair and thorough examinations of their involvement in the financial statement manipulation. The penalty should be commensurate with their level of responsibility and the extent of their failure to detect the fraud and whether they were complicit in or negligent in their auditing responsibilities. And a more severe punishment for Party A in the auditing firm could include a revocation of license, where Party A's auditing license would be permanently revoked, preventing them from practicing as auditors in the future. And also there's fines and penalties, where imposing substantial fines and penalties on Party A, which may not only cover any financial gains they obtain from the audit, but also act as a deterrent to similar actions by other auditing firms. And they could also file civil lawsuits, where policyholders or affected stakeholders could file civil lawsuits against Party A to seek compensation for their losses resulting from the auditing firm's failure to detect the financial statement manipulation. And they could also file a criminal charge, where if Party A was found to be complicit in the fraud or if their negligence was egregious, criminal charges might be considered. And there's also an industry bans, where Party A might be banned from participating in professional organizations or associations related to auditing or accounting, further isolating them from the industry.
Okay, thank you both for sharing your insights. Now that we've discussed the penalty of Party A, it's time to talk about the penalty of Party B. It's the same question, whether their penalty is sufficient or should be more severe. Starting from you, Flo.
I think I have the same answer. I think Party B is the penalty is only sufficient in the context of the case.
Okay, what leads you to that conclusion?
First, it is essential that to recognize that the Party B situation was complex. The company was facing severe financial difficulties, and its action, while problematic, may not have been driven by a malicious intent to defraud policyholders or investors. In such cases, it's crucial to consider the intent and the circumstances.
Okay, could you elaborate on why the penalty is deemed sufficient in this context?
The penalty includes the revocation of Party B's business license, which is a significant measure as it effectively puts an end to their operations, thereby protecting policyholders and investors from further harm. This also serves as a clear deterrent to other companies, emphasizing the importance of responsible financial management.
Okay, so you're saying that the penalty already includes a balance between accountability and recognizing the company's financial strength.
Yes, exactly. While it's important to hold the companies accountable, it's also necessary to consider the broader implications, such as the potential economic and social consequences of a more severe penalty. In this case, revoking the business license is a strong signal that the company's actions were not acceptable, also acknowledging the complexities that they faced.
Okay, thank you from the process. Now, what do you think from the concept? Is it sufficient or should it be more severe?
Party B should also have a more severe punishment for the life insurance company that engage in financial statement manipulation, such as criminal charges. If Party B's action involve clear criminal conduct, they could face criminal charges, and this may result in fines, restitution requirements, or even imprisonment for individuals within the company responsible for the fraudulent activities. And there's also an asset forfeiture in cases where Party B benefited significantly from the fraud. Authorities may consider seizing or liquidating the company's asset to compensate policyholders and affected stakeholders. There's also an executive accountability, where holding the executive responsible for the financial statements manipulation personally accountable could involve significant fines or even banning them from participating in the insurance or financial industry in the future. They could also file a civil lawsuit. Policyholders and affected stakeholders could file civil lawsuit against Party B to seek compensation for their losses. And there's also a lifetime business ban, where in particularly egregious cases, a lifetime ban on conducting business in the insurance or financial sector might be considered.
Okay, we have discussed both of the penalties. You guys have a different opinion on whether penalty is sufficient or severe. Now, to end with the other discussion, we have our last question. What are some ways to prevent similar scandals from happening in the future? We'll explore this topic from both the pro and con sides. Pro, please share your thoughts on ways to prevent such scandals from happening in the future.
Yes, there are several effective ways to prevent similar scandals in the future, such as first, strengthening corporate governance standards by implementing robust corporate governance standards, including having a strong independent board of directors, increase financial disclosure, and improve shareholder oversight. It's essential to prevent the fraud and mismanagement. Secondly, is improving auditing standards, enhancing auditing standards by requiring auditors to maintain greater independence from the companies they audit, strengthening training requirements, and increasing oversight of the auditing profession can help in early detection of financial irregularities. And third is increasing accountability for corporate wrongdoing by imposing stricter fines and penalties for corporate fraud, holding individual executives accountable for their actions, and making it easier for fraud victims to seek damages can create a strong deterrent against unethical practices.
Okay, thank you. Now, please present your prevention on similar scandals from happening in the future.
Preventing similar scandals in the future requires a multi-pronged approach, such as regulators should have the authority and resources to effectively supervise financial institutions, proactively identify and address emerging risks, and hold them accountable for their misconduct. There's also a financial institution must adopt strong corporate committee and effective risk management controls to prevent fraud and mismanagement. Financial institutions should be compelled to disclose more information about their financial condition and investment strategies, aiding investors and regulators in early risk identification. There's also increasing whistleblower protection, where protecting employees who report wrongdoing from retaliations encourage them to come forward with valuable information about fraud and mismanagement. There's also consumer education, where educating consumers about the risks associated with financial products and services empowers them to make informed decisions and avoid scams. And in addition, specific measures like diversifying investment portfolios, increasing the frequency and scope of audits, maintaining higher capital reserve, prohibiting risky activities, and establishing compensation funds for policyholders can all contribute to preventing future scandals in the life insurance industry.
Okay, thank you. It is evident that there's a range of strategies that can collectively work towards preventing such scandals and maintaining the integrity of the financial industry. This concludes our discussion of the Party B case and its implications. Thank you all for your valuable insights. And pro and con, can you please provide your closing remarks to the case?
Yes, certainly. So, in closing, we must acknowledge that it's a complex and challenging nature of the Party B case. While there are arguments to hold various parties accountable, it's crucial to consider the broader implications of accountability measures. By striking the right balance between accountability and industry health is essential, as overly punitive measures could deter investment and lead to unintended consequences. The focus should be reinforcing regulatory and governance frameworks to prevent such scandals from happening in the first place, promoting transparency and ensuring the protection of policyholders.
No, your closing remark on the concept.
In our closing remarks, it is essential to emphasize that accountability is fundamental to maintaining trust and integrity in the financial industry. While there may be concerns about the potential negative impacts of accountability measures, ensuring that those responsible for misconduct are held to account is essential for justice and restitution. Stricter regulations and governance practices can deter unethical actions and protect the interests of policyholders and the public.
Okay, now that pro and con have given their closing remark, I will conclude the discussion as a whole. The Party B case serves as a significant reminder of the importance of accountability, transparency, and sound governance in the financial and insurance sectors. It highlights the delicate balance between accountability and the broader health of the industry. As we heard from both sides, various measures can be taken to prevent similar scandals in the future, with a focus on the regulatory improvements, corporate governance, and transparency. Now, the key takeaway from our discussion is that a proactive approach is essential to prevent financial irregularities and protect the interests of policyholders and investors. Balancing accountability with industry stability is a complex challenge, but it's one that must be addressed to maintain trust in the financial sector. Thank you all for your valuable contributions to this discussion.